Thank you for your patience. Now we will begin our final session of the day, Future of Renewable Energy. And I'd like to introduce our moderators and speakers for this session. For our moderators, Professor Dr. Nebojsa Nakishenovic, ICEF Steering Committee, Vice Chair of the Group of Chief Scientific Advisors to the European Commission, Honorary Emeritus Scholar, International Institute for Applied System Analysis, Emeritus Professor of Energy Economics, Vienna University of Technology, Austria, Serbia. Professor Dr. Kuroda Reiko, ICEF Steering Committee, Designated Professor, Frontier Research Institute, Chubu University, Professor Emeritus, the University of Tokyo, member of G7 GEAC 2023 Japan. And for our speakers, we have Dr. Paolo Frankl, Head of Renewable Energy Division, International Energy Agency, France, and he's online. Mr. KATASE Hirofumi, Executive Vice Chairman and Director, iPulse Incorporated, President and CEO, G-Pulse Incorporated, and Chairman, Geodreams Company Limited, Japan. Dr. KANEKO Yukihiro, Head of Perovskite Photovoltaics Business Promotion Office, Panasonic Holdings Corporation, Japan. Mr. Rajiv Ranjan, Director, Power Finance Corporation Limited, India. And we have Professor Dr. Evelyn and Wang, Vice President for Energy and Climate, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, Ford Professor of Engineering, Massachusetts Institute of Technology, United States of America. And I'd like to ask our main moderator, Professor Dr. Nakishenovic, to moderate this session. So please take it away.
Thank you very much. Warm welcome to all of you here in auditorium and all of those online to this session number 5 on the future of renewable energy. So we have quite a lot to discuss this afternoon. So with no further ado, let me just tell you that we will have 2 parts to this session. Number 1 will be the keynote that is virtual, as you can see. Dr. Paolo Frankl is with us. And then the second part will be discussion with the panel. We also plan to go to the audience toward the end, so please think of the questions you would like to ask. So let me just say that it's a great honor and pleasure that you are with us, Dr. Frankl. I think this is a very distinguished keynote on the topic. As you have heard, Paolo is the head of the Renewable Energy Division at the International Energy Agency. He and his colleagues provide analysis and advice on renewable energy policies, markets, technologies, life cycle, eco-labeling, and so on. So basically, they cover all of the renewable issues. So I think that's going to be an excellent platform for our discussions in the panel. So I would like to give you the word now. I understand you'll be speaking for about 15 minutes, and then we'll entertain some questions directly to the distinguished lecturer from the audience. So please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and don't hesitate to accelerate if you see that I'm slow. Thank you very much for inviting the IEA, myself, to ICEF2025. I salute my former boss, Mr. Nobuo Tanaka. Sorry for not being able to be with you in Tokyo. Indeed, in the 10-15 minutes, I will try to specify the future of renewable energy from our perspectives. Next slide. Let me start from the present situation. If I can have my next slide. Here we go. So this is, I will start with 3 slides from our renewable market report that was published yesterday. So these are brand new. And I will start by saying that despite the headwinds and challenges, and I will return with this on this in a minute, renewables are beating new records. So 2025 is yet another year of record power installation for renewable capacities. More than 700, actually almost 750 gigawatt of power capacity. Please take into account that we are using DC numbers for PV, which is different with IRENA numbers. This is more technical things, but you are all super experts. What I wish to show here is that this is twice the amount of the installations of just a few years ago in 2022, and it's a massive deployment which is driven by solar. Next, please. And if you look at the future, so looking at 2030, this is even much more evident of how this deployment is driven by solar. Solar is actually going to represent 80% of the capacity additions of renewables in the next 5 years up to the end of the decade. This is driven by low costs, but also by much faster installations than in other cases, like, for instance, wind and hydro, less permitting problems, social acceptance problems. It's a cocktail that makes solar actually one of the driving forces of renewables in this deployment. Now, in terms of installed capacity, we see 4,600 gigawatt of installed capacity being installed by 2030. This is actually a doubling of all the capacity that has been installed for 40 years of renewables, hydro included. It's a massive amount. It falls short of the tripling objective that was discussed at COP28, which would lead to 11,000. So we have a gap of around 1,800, 2,000 gigawatt missing. But we think that with the right implementation of policies, this gap could be reached. If you give a benchmark, with these projections, we would end up in 2030 at a 2.6 times the power capacity of the baseline reference of 2022, which was the basis of the COP agreement. Now, next, please. Renewables, however, is not just electricity. It is also another penetration in the heating and cooling and transport sectors. Here, the shares are much, much lower, and this is actually one of the frontier. Although what we also see is a sector coupling, a penetration of electrification in these sectors. As you can see here, the renewable in transport are the growth of renewables in transport is about to accelerate by a factor 1.5 by 2030, leading to a share of renewables in transport, all type of included, about to 6% in 2030. And this is driven mostly by the blue part, which is electrification of cars, of course, which is a massive increase of electric vehicles, but it also has the component of biofuels, in particularly for sustainable aviation, continuing in road, but also starting for shipping and aviation. And this sector coupling leads me to another point, which will be a big driver of renewables, and which is a much stronger electrification that we see coming, which is driven by AI, but not only. Next, please. So there is a lot of debate. This is coming from a report that the IEA published on artificial intelligence some time ago. And what I would like to hint here is the fact that there is a lot of discussion about AI, about the increase of electricity that it comes. We have estimated a maximum of, a range of electricity consumption which goes over 1,000 terawatt-hours by 2035. This is massive. But I also want to raise your attention to the graph on the right, which is that electrification is actually expected to increase in all sectors. And actually AI and data centers is not the main driver of electrification. It's more industry, it's more electric transport, it's appliances, it's more space cooling due to the higher temperatures, and then people get more air conditioning, in particularly in some ASEAN countries and in the Middle East. So there are many things that are driving a lot of electrification, which, to be honest, so far has only happened in China, and this will be a driver for renewables. So far the drivers. Now I would like to speak about a few challenges, and I will conclude on technology opportunities. Next, please. We look at 4 main families of challenges for renewables. Long and complex permitting, which is everywhere. Concentration of manufacturing and supply chains, and I will get more in detail on that. system integration of rising shares of variable renewables, and the fact that power system flexibility resources are not developing at the same pace. And then something that sometimes we tend to forget, high cost of capital and difficult financing, especially in emerging and developing economies. So let me elaborate on a few of those. The first is, next slide, the concentration in one single country in Asia on the manufacturing and also on the critical minerals. On the left, you can see the share of China in solar PV manufacturing in installations, which is massive, and it is along the whole value chain: installations, modules, cells, wafers, polysilicon. And on the right, we see the rare earth mining, refining, and magnet production. And once again, the red color is the share of China, which is massive in many circumstances. So that's the challenge number one of the challenges. The second is system integration. And I would like, next please, and I would like to remind that the IEA has been working on system integration of renewables for a long time. It's actually 2 decades. The first was under the mandate of the G8 Gleneagles in 2005. And we have elaborated a framework which classifies as 6 different phases of variable renewable integration. I will not go into the detail, but I just want to pass one message. The challenge of system integration of variable renewables depends, very simplified, on 2 variables. One, the share of variable renewables themselves, solar and wind. And second, the degree of power system flexibility in which they are embedded. And that one depends on a number of factors, and all of them are important. Grids, the balancing area, affordable storage, dispatchable supply from fossil fuels, but also from other renewables like hydro, like geothermal. And then, absolutely last but not least, the demand-side measures that are actually most often the most efficient way of system integration, but they don't always have the market framework. Now, having said so, the challenge is there. Next slide. And we are tracking actually curtailment levels in all the countries that we monitor, and we see that curtailment is rising. So with the share of renewables, this is the global average on the left, and then you have some examples for different categories of technologies on the right, and the curtailment shares are different. For instance, Germany is a good example. You have a low curtailment for PV, but you have a very high curtailment of offshore wind. And why? The problem is the grid, are the grid connections which are not following quickly enough. We have a variety of these curtailment rates. This is more an economic issue, it's not a security issue. We're looking at abundance. But nonetheless, one message is clear. The world needs to accelerate much more the power system flexibility resources everywhere. Next, while investment in clean technology manufacturing is booming, and here actually in this format of slide, you see the wind and then the electrolyzers manufacturing. So I'm sorry, there is a little bit a problem in the legend in the slide that you are seeing. Anyway, the message does not change. The big of the investment happens in 3, let's say 4 macro zones: China, United States, Europe, and now emerging India. But vast part of the emerging and development economies, the investment is simply not there. And this is because there is an issue of cost of capital and financing, and this is indeed a big major of concerns. Now, next, on the technology opportunities. And I group this in 5 groups. I will only elaborate a few. I will not go into solar perovskites of PV because I know that there are other distinguished speakers that are covering this. But I want to mention something that maybe I didn't say before. In this boom of solar PV, 40% of the additions are coming from distributed rooftop PV. There is a huge potential a big part of this is becoming absolutely subsidy-free, is coming because the consumers, commercial resident consumers, see a profit and economic value of distributed PV. And so this is absolutely a big part of development. Second, geothermal. The next slide, please. We had a specific report at the end of 2024 that looked at the future of enhanced geothermal, which is actually opening completely new possibilities for this resource through the technologies that today are applied in the oil and gas industry. The costs are very, very high, but we estimated that with the input and the expertise of the oil and gas industries, this cost could be massively reduced by a factor of 5 in a very short period of 1 decade. And that would lead to an LCOE of geothermal of $50 per megawatt hour by 2035. And this would unlock 800 gigawatt of global market potential by the half of the century, which would be an enormous increase in low emissions, dispatchable supply from renewables. Next one, wind. The technology improvement, the turbine size, the supply chain improvements have reduced global costs. Not recently, as you know, the costs are only reducing in China, but not outside China. But this is more a problem of supply chain organization right now. But the message here is that in order to do this, which was also the case for wind onshore before and for solar PV, there have to be stable, predictable policies. And now we are entering a next generation of wind offshore technologies with floating that obviously at the beginning are more expensive than the other ones. The only way to promote this is to, of course, have predictable policies that maximize the predictability of investments. And I conclude with 2 slides on a crucial enabling family of technologies, which is on storage. Next, please. Batteries are seeing, electric batteries are seeing an enormous improvement, which is driven by the mobility sector, by the electric vehicle batteries, but which has now very clear spillover effects in stationary batteries. That costs have gone down in a little bit more than a decade by 80–90%. And this has a very strong implication on LCOE of solar PV plus batteries, which is, of course, different in different places of the world. But if you take the graph in the right, and if you look at India, solar plus PV batteries will have an estimated LCOE at 2030 of lower than $40 per megawatt hour, providing dispatchable power. Of course, on a period of 4 hours, but we are hearing now of recent progress in China getting 6 hours, even longer hours of duration. This is really, combined with ultra-low cheap solar PV, this is a big changer. But my last slide is on something else. Renewables is not just about power. It has to be about heat. And the important point here is to have a dent on the heat consumption in the world. And we are looking at electrification opportunities, but also the use of what we call electric thermal batteries. You use ultra-cheap renewables in order to have a thermal energy battery. And this thermal energy battery can produce industrial process heat. It can produce steam. It can produce, of course, with a turbine, peak power. And this will be one of the next generation technologies which will enable a much faster penetration of renewables in industrial setting, which so far has been limited. So next, please. I conclude here with a very simple message. Despite the challenges and the headwinds that are there, no doubt, we see a strong growth of renewables in the medium term, so until 2030, but we equally see a very strong growth afterwards, and this is because of the many technologies, opportunities that we have. Renewables cover a large portfolio of technologies. The so-called mature so solar PV and wind, and of course the older ones like hydro, have a potential to go, but then there is a set of emerging technologies that have also a huge potential for the future. I hope I was not too long, and I stop here, and of course I welcome any questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. This was perfect. And I think in your keynote, you have already raised a number of challenges that we'll have to discuss in our panel, from investment to integration of the systems, how the new technologies will develop, wind and photovoltaic and geothermal. So this is fantastic. Thank you very much. But we have time for 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Well, you're thinking of the question. I have to say, you know, we all know that renewables are growing explosively, but this is quite impressive that we have doubling of the capacity from 4.5 terawatts today by 2040 to 9 terawatts, what you said in your talk. Well, yeah, please.
If I may comment on that one.
Yeah. Please do, and then we'll take 1 question.
Yeah, sure, exactly. I was giving more time to the audience to reflect on what to ask me. We have actually also an accelerated case in our forecast, which is assuming that the existing policies and targets are fully implemented. So I had not the time to go into it, but it means addressing the permitting challenge. Massively investing in storage. So, for instance, like the storage auctions in Italy, which are a big driver of more solar and wind. Well, in that case, we go even closer to the 11 terawatt because we go to 2.85 instead of 3. So this what I showed you of the doubling capacity is actually our cautionary part. We have also another more optimistic outlook to 2030 if the policies are fully implemented.
Let's hope that the optimistic outlook will materialize. A short question, please.
Thank you. That was very interesting. Noel Pritchard from Intralink. You mentioned one bottleneck around grid integration. Are there any other key bottlenecks that you think are preventing the rapid spread of renewable energy in the next 5, 10, 15 years?
Well, I listed more than grids. But the reason why I insist on grid is because this is something that requires a long-term planning. Grids, even if the plans for grids are done now, it will take 5, 7, maybe 10 years to be built. And so this is why we think that this is the main bottleneck. I would insist, I would also note something else. I mean, everybody is speaking about electrification, about AI, but the biggest challenge is to be connected to the grid. Yeah. It's a big challenge for demand. It's not just a big challenge for renewables, and this is why we insist on the grids. The second thing, however, is storage, because utility scale storage can also help in congestion management of the grid, because it can be applied much faster. And the third is the demand side part. There is not enough focus on smart devices that connect distributed solar PV with smart chargers, with smart heat pumps. Everything is known. The digital technologies are available, but there are not clear policies for that yet. And this is an unlocked opportunity. So these are the main barriers, but also opportunities. Permitting is another one. We have a plethora of these challenges, but I insist on grids because grid requires time. And which means that if we want to have a solution in 2035, we need to act now.
Thank you. That's roughly what I thought you'd say. Thank you. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. I think we are now off to a very good start after your keynote. I think you have raised all of the important challenges and opportunities. So I'll just make a very brief introduction before we go to our 4 panelists. We discussed already in the morning about the multiple crises facing the world, conflicts, wars, immense suffering of the people. But perhaps in the long run, the biggest challenge and the biggest danger is tipping of the Earth system, and in particular climate change. And that was raised many times. And as you've already heard from Paolo, the renewables are the good news story in that context. Doubling every decade the capacity or even faster, that's the way forward to solve this problem. And I also particularly enjoy the focus also on the end use, that the demand is changing, the world is electrifying, we will need some demand for the heat as well. But I think with the electrification and the digitalization, that's a great platform for the growth of the renewables in the future. And from my own personal work, if I might just mention that, I'm very optimistic about the economics. Investment is a different issue. We'll be discussing that. But the history shows, in particular in this country, in Japan, but also worldwide, for every doubling of the photovoltaic capacity, costs went down by 20%. Through orders of magnitude. So this is really impressive. And I think that gives us a great basis for looking at these issues in our panel. So our four eminent panelists, we will start with the two innovations from Japan that are really important, then look at the challenges of investments that was already mentioned in India, rapidly growing country, so this is even more difficult there. And then I think we will talk about the integration and innovation issues. So that's the plan. And I would like to then go immediately to the first panelist. We have been all introduced, so let me just say that we will start then with geothermal, the opportunities of the geothermal. And Hirofumi-san, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Naki-san. 10 years ago, I was serving in the government, and I had a strong belief that innovation must be at the heart of climate action. That conviction led to the creation of ICEF. So today, I'm very happy and honored to be present here, not as a government official, but the actual person which is one of the ICEF committee members moving that innovation forward. Geothermal energy has remained a niche energy source in most countries. However, next generation geothermal technology is now emerging, with several successful demonstration projects already underway. The foundation of this new approach is to inject fluid from the surface into hot underground formations, where it is heated and then brought back to the surface. With this methodology, we can harness geothermal resources that are over 1,000 times greater than those accessible through conventional geothermal system. At the same time, subsurface uncertainties are significantly reduced, making projects widely bankable, in other words, viable for financing by banks. This is a crucial advantage that conventional geothermal has not offered. These merits put together open the door for geothermal to become a truly principal source of the world's energy supply. According to a report published by the International Energy Agency last December, the global technical potential of next-generation geothermal exceeds 600 terawatts. And please note that this is only for electric power. If you combine the energy as heat resources, it could be even double of that. And the installed capacity could reach 800 gigawatts by 2050 for the power plant alone. The greatest challenge to realizing this vision is reducing drilling cost. At GPAS, we are addressing this challenge directly. We are developing a new drilling system that combines high-pulse power with conventional PDC drilling. We have conducted already a service trials, and we have achieved a 70% cost reduction. Next year, we will proceed to subsurface demonstration with the goal of commercial deployment by 2027. Because existing drilling rigs and engineering workforce from the oil and gas sector can be repurposed by this technology, large-scale development of this technology can proceed very, very rapidly. To bring next-generation geothermal into mass adoption, we will need not only legal framework and early-stage financial support. Those are measures common to all renewable energy sources. But also the establishment of comprehensive subsurface database by the government will be very, very helpful. But what is most important is that this form of geothermal system serves as both a baseload power source and a flexible balancing resource. In other words, it can operate stably around the clock, 24/7, while also adjusting output in response to demand and weather conditions fluctuations. This makes it a decisive tool for moving beyond our dependence on fossil fuels. In order to fully realize this potential as quickly as possible, we must undertake serious institutional design, including the phase-out of fossil fuel power plants even before they are fully depreciated. That concludes my remarks. Thank you for your attention, and I look forward to the discussion.
Thank you very much. We will do this in rapid power, one after the other. So the next panelist is Yukihiro-san about the Perovskite PV.
Thank you very much for kind introductions, Ki-san. So I'm Yukihiro KANEKO from Panasonic Holdings Corporations. I'm lead of the Perovskite solar cell projects of the Panasonic. And this slide shows our thinking way of Panasonic green impact. That is, the Panasonic aim to reduce about 1% of entire carbon dioxide emissions. Because Panasonic have a very variety of products, a lot of products over the world. That is meaning we have responsibility of the 1% of the carbon dioxide emissions. So today I'd like to talk about the Perovskite solar cell. That is one of the option of the green impact, how to reduce the carbon dioxide. So let me introduce our technology. That is kind of the new technology for the new game changers for the renewable energies. So let me highlight the big challenges of urban areas. From ICEF report, the 75% of entire electricity consumption coming from the urban areas. But maybe you know, well, maybe around here, there are no space to install the solar cell. So that is a little bit the problem. So we are now developing to address the issues. We are now developing the new type of solar cell. We call that the building integrated perovskite solar cell. That is covered with the surface of the buildings. For example, the balcony or the facades or windows and walls on the skylights or something like that. So to address such issues, we can overcome from the urban areas, so we can generate much more power by using these perovskite solar cell technologies. Because we will provide the power generation grasses, and maybe you can generate much more power from the urban areas. It is very, very near to the power consumption areas. And the right image shows our technology itself. So Panasonic offers the very high efficiency perovskite solar cell with the long time durations, with a very high size flexibility and design flexibility, such as the transparency change. Please see the right side figures. And of course, now we are developing the printing technology because this perovskite material is coming from the liquid ink. So by using our original inkjet printer that is dedicated for the display technologies, we can print the architecture glass directly. And the windows and walls comes from a very variety of sizes. That meaning we have to adapt size flexibility. And they compare with the conventional silicon solar cell. Conventional silicon solar cell is located on the rooftop. We cannot see. But in this case, the facade or windows and walls, we can see directly. So that means we have to tackle to the design solar cell. So using the inkjet printers, we can change transparency or size variety, or we can directly print the architecture materials. So using these technologies, we can expand the opportunity of the renewable energies. So Panasonic is aiming to expand the opportunity of the renewable energy by using these technologies. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let us hope that these two great innovations in the renewable area can contribute to those 4.5 and plus terawatts by 2030. So the next that will also require investments, and that's exactly the next topic we will have. Rajiv will be talking about how to implement the ambitious plans of India on the renewables.
Hello. So good afternoon and namaskar to everyone. It is really a privilege for me and honor as well to be here, to be speaking on behalf of my country. I'm representing Power Finance Corporation, which is a Maharatna company, NBFC, non-banking financial company. And as a lender, we have been witnessing the rapid growth of renewable energy in our country for last 10 years. And through my presentation, I would try to take you through the journey, how we have come through, and then what is our plan. So let me just start with the Indian perspective, with how we stand in terms of energy. So as of date, we have almost 500 gigawatt installed capacity, marginally less than that. And out of that, around 250 gigawatt plus is non-fossil fuel. So the target which we wanted to achieve by 2030, we had already achieved. And the targets of carbon emission also reduction by 1 billion ton of carbon dioxide reduction by 2030. So we have almost 50% of that we have already achieved. And 500 gigawatt installation of renewable energy by 2030, we are very much on track. Possibly, we might achieve earlier than 2030. Intensity cut, that is in 2019 itself, 47% as on 2009, that we have already achieved 33%. So kind of thing, the way we have planned, we are moving very rapidly towards that. And PFC as an institution has been associated with this in this journey. We are the largest NBFC. We are owned majority by the government, rest by the public. We are the highest rated NBFC. We have also been making profit. It's not only that we support generation of power through renewable energy, we also support other, because we understand that energy security is important, but while supporting renewable energy, we must also secure our energy requirement. So we, as an institution, we support that. And out of 250 gigawatt, we are almost 100 gigawatt we have supported with our finances. And our loan assets is almost $133 billion US. So now coming to that challenges, I think in the keynote address, most of the challenges have been touched upon, and almost similar challenges are there in our country as well. So while we all understand that renewable energy by nature is intermittent, And when we install, there are challenges with the grid integration as well, and also like meeting the demand requirement. So in addition to solar and wind, which is the prime renewable energy source, we have started focusing now on storage, battery. Battery prices has come down, so we have started putting battery in almost all the solar plants which are coming up new. And we are also looking at pump storage. We feel that pump storage could be a good solution to energy storage. And there are challenges with regard to that local content, the kind of geopolitical situations which we have. Another thing, even though the module manufacturing capacity in India has touched almost 100 gigawatt, but cell manufacturing, we are much less. We are around 25 gigawatts. We have to import. We are dependent upon import. Then I think grid and transmission, I think it has already been touched upon. So as a lender, our main focus is to see whatever projects which support renewable energy, it must pay us back. So in order to get that, like green hydrogen or battery and other things, government has put up like viability gap funding and also giving PLIs, production linked incentive to such projects. So, going to the next. So as you can see, there is a matrix which is like technical readiness and financial readiness. It is a small, sorry for that, I think whether it is visible to the audience. So it is under different category. So we say that there are certain projects which are new in renewable energy, but we require in the long run, it has to be supported by the government with kind of incentives and viability gap funding. Because financial readiness, it can only have when it has the technology gets the maturity and also the scalability that the capacity can go up. Accordingly, this structure had been made. And so basically, at the end, what we would like to say that to secure our energy needs, we are on the right track. And we know that we require huge money, around 300+ billion US dollar, in order to achieve 2030 target. And we are very much geared up for that. So on that, I would like to conclude because the time is up. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajiv. This is a tall order, 500 gigawatts, 300 billion. Maybe that's where Ismail's comments from the previous session comes into question, how to de-risk that and provide government support. So now we go to the fourth panelist, last but certainly not least. I think you will be integrating all of this into the system and talking about innovation.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's really my pleasure to be here with you all today. As a professor of mechanical engineering at MIT, as well as a former director of ARPA-E, which is the U.S. Department of Energy's innovation department, I'll say I've had the opportunity to work at both ends of the energy innovation spectrum, from fundamental discovery to commercial deployment. And these experiences have given me a clear view of what it takes to accelerate our clean energy transition. To succeed, I believe we need a dual approach to innovation. In particular, we have to unlock scale to deploy and integrate the technologies we already have. And we also need to unlock possibility to develop the breakthroughs that will define the energy systems of the future. So we only have a short window of time to alter our climate trajectory. And at MIT's climate project, we've set a goal of achieving significant global impact within the next decade. And what that means is that we need to move quickly to scale up technologies that already work, solar and wind and other renewables, as we've heard today. But we also need to address the systems level challenges that limit their penetration on the grid, which also we heard about from our special speaker this afternoon. So for example, we've said that, we know that solar and wind are mature technologies, but as we push towards more grid integration, we certainly hit the constraints in storage, transmission, and systems reliability, which we heard about already. I'd like to focus on long duration, low cost energy storage, which I believe is a key missing piece. We know that storage is needed that not just lasts hours, but actually days, and at less than about $20 per kilowatt hour. And achieving this means really rethinking battery chemistries and broadening the technology landscape. And certainly we're seeing a lot of progress already, such as that with iron air, sodium and flow batteries, as well as thermal batteries, as we heard also earlier today, as well as compressed air and water storage. But one of the things is scalability is also critical. It's projected by 2050, we know that global storage demand could grow about 10x than what it is today, and which is far beyond what current materials and systems can supply. And a powerful example of this, in fact, is a scalable innovation from Form Energy, which is an MIT spin-out by Professor Yetming Chang. And they use an iron air battery that operates essentially through a reversible rusting process. And because iron is abundant and inexpensive, the approach is both scalable and affordable. And so Form is now building its first high volume manufacturing facility, which is what you see on the bottom left here. And this is being built in West Virginia, which is a tangible step towards renewable systems that can now operate 24/7. Now, we also need to think about, how we invest in discovery-driven innovation, technologies that are emerging, but have the potential to reshape our energy landscape. And what such example is, of course, fusion energy. We know that fusion promises firm, emissions-free power. And at MIT, our spin-out Commonwealth Fusion is developing compact reactors using high-temperature superconducting magnets. But we know that we're still far away from practical deployment. Fusion isn't only about making the spark, but it's also about building the fireplace that contains it. So the reactor's first wall must withstand these extreme heat and radiation conditions, which means that we need new materials that resist the embrittlement, maintain strength, and ensure long-term safety and cost-effectiveness under these extreme conditions. Of course, there are other opportunities. I think we'll have a session tomorrow about taking advantage of Earth-source renewables, such as potentially geologic hydrogen or geologic ammonia. These are emerging opportunities whereby geologic hydrogen is formed naturally when iron-rich rock formations react with high-pressure steam, which potentially could offer hydrogen at around $1 per kilogram, which could be making it cost competitive with today's fossil-based production. But certainly to unlock this potential, we need innovation in understanding resource detection, looking at stimulation and gas separations, among others. And we believe there are other opportunities in addition to geologic hydrogen, such as geologic ammonia, by which we have nitrogen introduced with the high-pressure steam. And this offers another promising pathway. This is something that, again, another MIT spin-out is exploring called KATASE energy. So in summary, I will say that if we focus on just scaling today's solutions, we risk of limiting breakthroughs that are needed. And if we focus only on discovery, then we'll never reach necessarily the impact fast enough. So the challenge and opportunity that I see is to work on both fronts simultaneously. How do we deploy systems innovations that scales renewable technologies today, and also invest in discovery innovation that creates the solutions of tomorrow? So by doing both, we believe we can deliver practical progress now, while also paving the way for a resilient, renewable, and equitable energy future. Thank you.
Thank you, Evelyn. I think for me it was fascinating that you also stretch our time horizon beyond the hill where we can see to the next generation of discoveries that might make a contribution. That's connected with Sally's comment this morning, that some of these things take decades, if not even longer. So we need to plan that as well. And apropos scale, we already have quite lots of feedback from the audience from the internet. And I would say one of the comments that fascinated me, that it's here, I will just briefly paraphrase it, is the person said, why is it a problem that China is expanding the renewables so fast? Because China accounts for about 1.5 terawatt from the 4.5 global. And the person said, is it not the problem that the rest of the world is lacking? So I think lagging behind. So I think we have to think in those dimensions as well. Well, thank you very much, I think also for keeping on time, not just giving fascinating introductory comments. So we have about half an hour for discussion. We'll have the discussion with you, Reiko and I, and then we would like to go to the audience for the last 15 minutes or so. So Reiko, would you like to take over and ask the first question?
Yes. Well, I think we all know it's AI in the data center and the population increase and they want to have a high living standard. So search for energy demand is increasing, but we don't have time. So we need really innovation, technology, innovation financing, innovation systems, all covered nicely. But I'm a scientist, and I just want to ask sort of questions about all sounds glorious in technological innovations. For example, many renewable energy cannot be base load power, but the exception is geothermal in a sense, because it can be stable. But then, as a scientist, I may wonder, doesn't give any damage to the really deep underground earth structure? It may come up, methane may come up, or is there any other disadvantage by doing it? Because we all talk about, good point, this is good, this is wonderful, this is a new energy, this is a game changer. But nature is more complex. So we maybe stop once, and is there any other elements, factors we have to think about? So could you first?
Thank you, Kuroda-san. Of course, there are challenges. For example, we know not very much about underground sources. The deeper you go, but at shallower portion, we know about it sufficiently. And as for the impact on the nature, as I said, 600 terawatt is, we have 600 terawatt of resources, even at the economical threshold. And even if we have 1% of that, it's going to be 6,000 gigawatt. So sufficient to supply almost all the energy sources in the world. So I could say that by moving from the shallower space to deeper space, we'll be able to harness this energy without much of the negative impact on the Earth. Thank you.
It sounds really promising. So I may ask around the questions from the audience. But if I go to the Perovskite one, again, I'm a bit sarcastic looking at this, because this durability of this Perovskite cell, it normally is 5 to 10 years, compared with 20 to 25 years, or 30 years for the ordinary silicon solar cells. Now, if you build in the glass, after 15 years, do you have to change the whole building? Because if you put it on top of the roof, you can just get rid of it and you can replace it. But if it's the whole building integrated, is it maybe even creating problem? Just the one question. And the second is durability, and also it may have lead, some other elements. So that you have to look at the environmental issues, you have to look at it. So there are not glorious points. There's always, you have to think some other negative factors, then we have to overcome to get it to the game changer. So could you reply to that?
Yeah, thank you very much for the questions. It's very good questions, I think, regarding the lifetimes. So our final goals is the same level of the conventional silicon solar cells. That's meaning the 1% degradations after 20 years. And maybe some newspapers say that perovskite have not so long the durability, but in our laboratory, so we already realized to 20 to the 15 years for the case of the particle phases. But that is the tiny cell size. So now we are tackling how to make this one with very big scale. So our pilot run is currently we have 1 meter by 1.8 meters. And we are now working for the high efficiency with high durabilities. And another reason of why we choose the glass, the substrates, the lifetime, the weak lifetime reason is we have two reasons. One is material reasons. Another one is moisture from the outsides. So glass substrate is very, very good material for preventing the outside moistures. So that means that I believe, we can reach very high, long duration, the same level of the silicon conventional solar cell. And of course, another questions about how to deal with the architecture material itself. And we use the glass. Glass we can use very, very long time. And of course, our first targets of our perovskite is easily replacement point for example, the balcony or inside windows or any other materials. Yes, and we'd like to push forward to the beginning of such kinds of applications. And quickly, so regarding the red, there are some chemical problems. Of course, at first, I'd like to say that the basic thinking way is recycling. It is the same level, same of the function of the conventional silicon solar cell. And of course, in the United States, we have the cadmium telluride solar cell. It is the same situations. And I'd like to add in the informations. The perovskite solar cell contains reds, but that amount is not so much. It is same level of 1 centimeter depth ground. It is same levels. It's not so much. Yeah, okay? So the first, of course, we will recycle. Okay, that's all. Thanks.
Okay, so we have to think all the elements to make it really big breakthrough. Now, about the financing and also systems, you want to ask questions, I'm sure. So go ahead.
Thank you, Reiko. I can't resist. I would like to ask each of you at least one question.
Read it.
But we do have to clarify the issue of timing because I'm getting symbols that it's only another 7 minutes. But my understanding is we go to 45, so we would have another 20 minutes. We would use the time to go to the audience. Yeah, so I think all of this has been, for me, very inspirational. So the new advanced geothermal, I think it gives an opportunity of having high temperature heat anywhere in the world, should this work out, your innovation work out. But my understanding is that the costs, like all of the renewables, are all upfront with the drilling. It's about 70% or so of the cost. Correct me if I'm wrong. But if that's the case, my question would be, could we use the old boreholes from the oil and gas industry? 10 years ago, I chaired the investment fund of our oil company, and that was one of the proposals with the heat exchanger. But there might be material and other problems. So that, if you can please respond.
Thank you, Naki-san. The cost reduction is very important. But as Paolo said, there are like cost reduction factor coming from the innovation in the oil and gas industry. And also there are innovation coming from the new technologies such as ours. And I think the United States government project that in 2030, the cost could reach like between 10 to 12 cents per kilowatt hour, which is very competitive given the fact that we don't need battery. And also this is carbon free. Yeah. And using the existing borehole used to be a very good point to start. because it could prove the concept of this closed loop, for example. But currently, I think we don't need that kind of approach anymore. We can build the new generation geothermal plant from scratch economically in a very near future. But you made a very good point that we should build on the existing knowledge coming from oil and gas. And apart from the technology, the another important contribution is the knowledge about the geology. Yeah. So that's why, for example, in the United States, the majority of the new power plants, geothermal power plants, are built on the oil and gas field, which has depleted, because we know very much about the geology, including the thermal gradient. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So my next question would be about semi-transparent and perhaps even colored photovoltaics. I think that's another great future, bright future, if you can bring the cost down and reliability and the efficiency. So my question is then, we would then in that case go to all of the surfaces. We could integrate it into the architecture. There could be even parts of the aeroplanes to collect some solar energy. But that was the question I really wanted to ask is how about the pavements and roads? That's about 2% of the global surface, I believe, is covered with that. Do you see any future in that, or would that be too complicated?
Yeah, this is a little bit complicated. I think the future of the solar cell is a mix of the conventional one and the new technologies. So, of course, our target is the urban areas and covered with the solar cell of the buildings. Because when I talk with our customers, the customer would like to install solar cell. They have to install solar cell, but they don't have any solutions. Because when we think about our big buildings, the top of the buildings, there are lots of air conditioning systems. We don't have any spaces, but they have to do. So we can provide some good solutions for there. Because compared with 10 years ago, the solar cell is better to have, right? So current status is that many companies have to have that solar cell and get the renewable energies to reduce the carbon taxes, of course. Yeah, and I think that is good questions. And of course, we have to think about the cost, of course. That is the good future is a mix of the solar cell is very, very optimistic.
Thank you very much. So I have also questions about India. I would like to ask if it's possible for brief answers. Let's see. One question that I think is really pertinent is that India has made a great progress in connecting people who didn't have access to electricity. I understand about half of the households now either have LPG or electricity. How about the other half? I mean, is that part of the investment strategy that you are talking to connect the households, perhaps also to the grid?
I think the data which you are having, almost every household in India is electrified. Only thing is that the houses which are far hilly areas, which are difficult to reach, there the solar rooftop has been the solution. And a village where like a local installation of solar has been done with the local transmission network, and it is electrified. So electrification has been completed, I think, around 5 years back itself.
So that's part of the 300 billion investment?
Yeah, almost like rooftop. If you talk about around 18 gigawatt has already been installed. And Government of India has launched a very ambitious scheme of PM Surya Ghar Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Surya Ghar Yojana, in which each and every household is encouraged to have solar rooftop in their house, so that as has been always been explained, that it can't replace the base load. So if the consumers themselves, they have the solar installation at their roof, it will stabilize the grid also to a large extent. So that is the philosophy and through which this is being achieved.
Thank you. And then I'll go to Evelyn. You are one of the world's leading experts on materials, in particular in the energy area. So I can't resist to ask you a question about, and Paolo talked about that as well, the need for the new materials, that would be corrosion resistance, recyclable maybe reusable and so on. So how do you see those developments?
Certainly, I'll say there's many opportunities. We need materials that are durable. We need them to be able to scalable, and they need to be reused. And meanwhile, we have to think about the cost implications. Affordability is really important, and they should be low carbon. And so I think in that context, we certainly understand across the energy landscape that there are many applications by which, and we've heard this, that we need these high temperature corrosion resistant materials for thermal batteries or electrolyzers or wind turbines and fusion. Yeah. And we also need that abundance, right? We need to think about what are the materials that are scalable, low cost feedstocks like iron or sodium or silicon, instead of say rare earth materials, which we know is a challenge for the supply chains right now. And circularity is something that I know has been a lot of discussions. We have to think about, the recyclability or the manufacturability so that these systems can be circular. And finally, the cost and manufacturability, that's all really important in thinking about materials innovation. And this is where certainly parts of it, AI can help us in thinking about materials discovery and accelerate that pathway, but there's still a lot of opportunity, but with all these considerations in mind.
And AI, good that you mentioned AI. We didn't have time to talk about that, but it's also going to be demand pull on many of the advanced technologies we discussed. So, Reiko, I give over to you. Maybe we can take about 5 to 7 minutes.
Yes, I think we're going to have questions from, yes, please, David. Could you bring the microphone to David? Yeah.
Thank you very much. I have a question to Evelyn. You talked about long duration storage and one of the points. And I was very astonished from a European point of view because you said long duration means not hours, but days. For me, long duration means months and seasons.
Certainly, I will say you need to get to those points when you get to higher and higher penetration, right, on the grid. And I think there are many challenges to even get to days. So I would say that I think that's a stepping stone, and maybe that there are transformational technologies could lend itself to be more favorable for really long durations, as you suggested, maybe seasons even, right? And that I think that lends itself to opportunities in innovation that I think are still, are many folks are pursuing in terms of innovation, whether it's these kind of thermal-based approaches, or it's electrochemical, or that of kind of pumped pressurized water underground. I think people are looking at these opportunities. But I would say the long durations, as you suggested, are challenging right now. We don't have necessarily an economically viable high-performance solution.
Okay. Any other? Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you. Very interesting panel. I have
yeah, identify yourself.
I've recently come to many situations where I hear people giving pushback against renewable energy, saying that the cost of renewable power generation is certainly dropping, but the integration cost into the grid makes it more expensive than current conventional power. And I wonder if you could talk about that a little bit. I mean, certainly at some point additional investments are needed in the grid to integrate renewables. Also, we need to invest in the grid just to handle new demand and urbanization and so on. Can you talk about at what point do renewables become less economic because of the ancillary investments that need to be made?
Yes, KANEKO? Oh. Yeah. Then, okay, go ahead, please.
Okay, thank you very much. So for my case, our case is we like to integrate the building architecture materials. That's meaning the architecture cost is very, very important. So, but the results, the photovoltaics, maybe you have to install the window itself. So we have to think about the difference between the with PV or without PV. So now we are collaborating with architecture designer or architecture material, the constructors, and how to tackle with how to reduce the cost and it's easy to install. So that is a very nice questions, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. Evelyn, do you want to say something as well? No? Okay.
Say, renewable energy, I don't see like it will become less economic. Only thing is that, yes, integration with the grid is a challenge. But even if the grid is put into service or a new grid is erected and commissioned, it will not cost you that much, which will be higher than the source of energy which you get through fossil fuel. And that has been our experience in India. Initially, to encourage renewable, there was some exemption from the transmission charges. But I think from this year onwards, June, that has been taken off. It is 50% and slowly it will be tapered off to 0. But still, we feel that the kind of cost which renewable energy throws, it is much cheaper. It actually makes economic sense. And once it gets combined with the storage, I don't think there will be any replacement.
Thank you. Okay.
Can I intervene?
Just short one, please. Okay. Last one, yes. You are the last one, okay.
Oh, sorry.
No.
I'm Christopher Hebling with the Fraunhofer Institute for Solar Energy Systems in Freiburg, Germany. So we work for 45 years on renewables, all the technologies which we have heard. But my question would be to Paolo. Well, all these wonderful numbers we've heard, and yes, we can congratulate ourselves for the success. But in perspective, or also in relationship, in 1990, the share of fossil energy in the end energy was 91%. The share of fossil energy last year was, I think, 86%. So we made 5% out of that. But on the other hand, the additional...
Could you please come to the question?
Yeah,
because we are running out of time.
We need so much more energy due to space applications, to seawater desalination, negative emissions, emerging economies. Isn't it fair to say that all the renewables will be swallowed by the additional, by the new markets, by AI and whatever? And shouldn't we, as a result of that, not talk about energy transition by energy addition? And so what do we do with the rest, with all the 86% fossil? And shouldn't we focus much more our energy on negative emissions and removal of the carbon out of the atmosphere? Because I think in the meanwhile, after 30 years in the field, I think it's naive to think that we replace the whole fossil energy by renewables. So that's a question I have.
Okay,
maybe
thanks.
Paolo can answer that.
Paolo, could you answer quickly?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Only quick response.
Yes, quick response. I'm sorry.
The key is electrification. And so far, it's fair to say that the only country that has doubled the electrification rate in its economy is China. Full stop. And China is paving the way for electric vehicles, for batteries. It's not just for renewables. The renewables are supplying something on demand that has not progressed in the last years. This is the key point while we are still at the same share of primary energy. I wanted to make a comment on India. I would like to congratulate India for what they are doing. It's a massive improvement, not just of renewables, but of system thinking. But if I'm allowed, I have one question to Professor Wang. I think one thing that you said is dramatic. The long duration, the daily duration storage is the real key next technologies in a few years. But now, after beyond China, where do you think the prospects for the champion? What is a champion country or a region that will take this forward, in your opinion, if I may ask?
Thank you, Paolo, also for staying with us.
I am a big fan of fusion.
Yeah.
Still to Professor Wang, I'm personally a big fan of fusion, but this will come a bit later. Storage comes first.
May I propose the following thing? We start with your answer, but maybe everybody else can make a 30-second final comments and reflections of our session so we can
wrap up session now.
Yeah.
Well, certainly I will say, Jess, that there's innovation everywhere right now. I represent still the U.S., and I do believe we have a vibrant innovation ecosystem there where we can disrupt learning curves and actually think about next generation storage or next generation geothermal and many others. I'll just say that it's been a great panel and really appreciate the perspectives here, and I think it gives me great hope that we will work together collectively as the world evolves and think about the energy transition, and there are many opportunities for us to partner, to innovate, and to deploy effectively with the financing that we need and the technology solutions and the policy as well. So thank you.
Ranjan?
So just to conclude, our renewable energy story is one of the ambition matched with delivery. That is what I want to say, because we are on track, as I said earlier, for 500 gigawatt by 2030. We have already achieved 50%. That is more than 250 gigawatt. And I think in the previous session, there was some talk about the innovative financing. And let me vouch for that. We are actually doing that. And that is where, with that support, we are able to achieve those targets. And we are also building innovative frameworks for financing to attract 300 or 350 billion by 2030. So ambitious targets are not enough. Bankable projects, resilient supply chains, and creative financing are equally vital in our view. And PFC, as an institution which I represent, has enabled 100 gigawatt, and again, ready to channelize another 10 trillion rupees of capital into India's clean energy growth. So our story is not about speed, scale, and solutions, but also with financing innovation. And we are committed to meet our climate commitments. Thank you.
Thank you. Very short observations, reflections.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm very happy to discuss about this, the tumors, and I think I have the ambitions of we will cover with the all surfaces, all urban areas, the Perovskite. Anyway, so that technology is still under development. So durability, of course, the lifetime, the efficiency is going up and up and up. So our scientists, our engineers, we have to tackle with some problems. But I think we need some supports from the social supports, the financial support, the system level supports. And in the case of our products, it's a little bit complicated because that is kind of functional architecture one. That is a little bit different than conventional one. So that means we have to collaborate with many supply chains players. So that is the key points for the success of this new technology, I think. Thank you.
So the situation surrounding the innovative technologies such as new generation geothermal reminds me of the early 2000s surrounding shale gas. The shale gas technology was established around that time. But at the same time, United States government was still organizing a conference as to how to import LNG. So I think it's very important to be imaginative and to be very keen to look into technology so that the government will be able to take proper action to disseminate new technologies such as new next generation geothermal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so wrapping up, thank you for a wonderful talk and wonderful panelists. And I think we need innovation, systems, financing, technologies. But maybe technologies are fast, but to pursue that, we need financing. So it's all integrating. And also, we need the capacity building to pursue the technology innovation. So I think we don't have enough time. So I think let's work together.
Paolo, would you like to say one sentence as our keynote speaker?
Well, thank you. The one sentence is that the Fraunhofer intervention saying that this is naive to think about 100%, I agree. The share of renewables in the total final consumption is less than 50%, but the opportunity side is huge, and I insist on the economic value of those who say that renewables are, with system integration, are more expensive. Ask them data to demonstrate that, and ask also another question, whether the current energy price crisis is a problem of the transition or is coming from the fossil fuel prices. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, all good things must come to a close. We are 1 minute over time. My apologies for that. But I think it was really stimulating discussion. I really enjoyed it. And I think it gives us food for thought for many months to come. But there is no doubt that I think this panel has illustrated that renewables are the future. And I would like to conclude by quoting my anecdotal experience. Dan Arvizu, who was the head of NREL, Sally probably knows him, the National Renewable Agency in US. And that was like 10 years ago. He would say when he would come to the Department of Energy meetings, everybody would say, "You're the only person of the good news here." And I think this was a panel of good news. So thank you very much, all of you, the audience, and all of those online, and the translators. Thanks.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Dankicenovic, Professor Dr. Kuroda, and all the speakers. So everyone on the stage, please rise. So let's end then with a big round of applause. Thank you very much for the insightful session.